Today, we are discussing how leaders can reduce the people pleasing and burnout of their staff. My name is Amy Ballantyne. Welcome to Power to the People Pleasers. I'm so excited to have my guest, Paul, here. Welcome, Paul.
Thank you, Amy. I appreciate you having me on.
This is going to be a great chat, I'm sure. You have a wealth of knowledge, and I'm excited to pull that out of you. Before we jump into this very important topic, have you ever been a people pleaser? And if so, how did that show up in your life?
I think we all are people pleasers at different times. The danger with some people is they go too far with it. So yes, I've been a people pleaser. Sometimes I've probably done too much to help my child or children or wife or what have you. So yeah, we all have been in that category at times.
I appreciate that. And I think one of the reasons I asked this question is for individuals listening to realize they're not alone. They're not the only one doing this behavior. And I'm particularly excited to take the angle today about how leaders can really reduce this in their
Mhm.
teams because it is a creator of burnout. And so I'm pumped for this conversation. Before we jump in, though, I want the individuals listening to know who you are
Mhm.
with a lifelong passion for leadership, having studied management, psychology, and political science at Ohio University,
Mhm.
master's degrees in business and education,
Mhm.
receiving a United Technologies Award for extraordinary management effectiveness twice, corporate career in various leadership teams, firsthand experience in strategic planning, organizational change, succession planning, and so on. 24 years in academia,
Mhm.
and having authored 27 books, spoken at 35 leadership conferences. My goodness, so excited to get your wisdom here today. You're a man to talk about this important topic.
Mm. Well, I spent roughly 20 years in the corporate world and roughly 20 years in the classroom. So I think I have a pretty good balance of both of those. I've also, as you said, Amy, written a number of books and articles on various aspects of being a leader. Leadership is a topic that fascinates me. I've been studying it and learning as much as I can about it for many years, and I still
Mhm.
am. I'm still curious and read a lot and study a lot and go to conferences and what have you. So it's a never-ending process.
Oh, I appreciate that very much, and I'm a big believer of continuously learning as well because we never know where the next uh, aha moment is going to come, right? With
Right,
these conversations or wherever you may be, the
right.
learning is possible. So let's dig in here. So you and I had a quick chat before we jumped onto this podcast, and you talked about it really becomes a problem when people are neglecting their core responsibilities. Can you talk about that as it
Mhm.
relates to people pleasing in the workplace?
Yeah, I think that's a core problem with the people pleaser. If a manager or leader has a team and there's one person that's always jumping in, raising their hand, I'll help, I'll do it, I'll take it on. Often that person takes on a lot of things that is not in their core job responsibilities. I often use the fried egg analogy that the yolk of the egg is their core job responsibilities, and the white part around the core is everything else. So the people pleaser is wanting and willing to assist and help just about anyone else that has a problem or an issue, and they get so involved in those activities that they neglect their core job.
Mhm.
People are getting paid a salary to do their core job responsibilities. If they can help and assist others, that's good, but they can't neglect their core job, right? That's
Yeah.
critical.
And what about, these individuals who, I'm a recovering people pleaser.
Mhm.
So I would be named as a person who would say, "Oh, I can help with that in the
Mhm.
past." So it I've seen those people be praised for their willingness to take on all the things
Yeah.
and to jump in. So how does a leader then balance they do need people to take on these extra responsibilities and not create that kind of toxic problem of only people pleasing for that?
Yeah, I think the leader needs to be aware of how much the person is taking on.
Mhm.
Um, the extreme people pleaser in the corporate world is, like I said, volunteering for just about everything, and they're taking on way too much. They don't really estimate well how much time and effort a task may take.
Mhm.
So just being aware of how much is the person taking on, how much is on their plate currently, and how much time and effort will this additional task take for the person. So
Mhm.
you're right. The leader initially is very impressed, like this person's a real team
Yeah.
builder and they really care about their teammates. And, it sounds great until the person doesn't get done a task or a project that they were committed to get done by a certain date. Then things start to, I don't know, be problematic, and the lead is saying, "What's going on?" And this isn't productive. You're not doing your job. So
Mhm. So, what's the mindset or coaching that you would be giving the leader who has been playing into the people pleasing of some of their team and just letting it roll, letting it ride?
mm, well, they want to. I think the leader's job is to help everyone perform at their best, and the people pleaser is not performing at their best when they're jumping in and saving the day in all these different areas. So the leader needs to coach the people pleaser that rather than jumping in and taking on the task, maybe you should be saying, I'm willing to give some advice and some suggestions to the person, maybe to help them. But don't take it on like, I'll do it, I'll take care of it, I'll put it on my to do list.
Mhm.
That is problematic and that is not effective. The other thing is, as we mentioned before, the leader needs to remind the people pleaser that he or she has certain job responsibilities, that's their core job and they need to focus on that.
Mhm.
Before they take on any additional stuff, they need to make sure they're in good shape with their core job responsibilities. So that's kind of
Yeah.
what I would indicate.
I've had so many conversations like this, honestly, with my coaching clients, my executive coaching clients, of uh, th- in some cases, they're the ones overworked and there's more and more being piled on. At any point, would you be recommending to the leader that relook at what the core job responsibilities are to potentially make some of these projects as part of the core responsibility? Or how would you handle this?
Yeah, well, I think each case is a little bit unique and different. Sometimes the distribution of work is not appropriate among the staff, so you got to kind of reassess, who's got what assignments and tasks. One thing I think leaders typically overdo is they over delegate to their top performers, so they give that person more and more to do, and that's not helpful or productive. So, yeah, the leader needs to see the big picture, right? They need to understand the overall assignments and tasks and activities that people are involved in and assess, does it make sense, or is it evenly distributed, or is one or two people got the majority of the work and some people have a light load. So how do I
Mhm.
redistribute and make it fairer? So yeah, I,
Mhm.
I think the leader needs to be aware and at times, yeah, reassess and redistribute the projects, and that needs to be a topic or a priority for the leader.
Yeah. I also wonder, I'd love to hear your insights. So, if we imagine the situation where let's say there's a team and maybe there's 10 people, and of that 10 people there are 3 that are the main people pleasers. They're the ones that are going, as we've heard in the past, quote unquote, above and beyond all the things. They
Hmm.
always raise their hands, right?
Yep.
So these people now want to learn how to have better boundaries. The leader wants them to learn.
Hmm.
What's the coaching that you would give to the leader to give to the whole group to mitigate the challenge these 3 might have of, well, why aren't you putting your hand up anymore?
Hmm. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's a barrier I heard from people. Well, Amy, why aren't you saying yes?
Yeah. 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 Um, I think coaching the whole team together, or explaining to the whole team together, that it's important that we all understand our core roles and responsibilities. We need to be mindful that we need to focus on that first. We need to get that done. And we need to help and assist each other and support each other, but not jump in and take on the task that someone else really should be doing, you know? Now, of course, there's times when maybe you need to do that, but all these cases are, you know, unique. And, there's times when the people pleaser, yeah, has to take on the task and take it on because the other person isn't getting it done. But
Mhm.
again, the leader needs to be aware of what's going on and what the dynamics are. And the question is, why is that other person not able to get the task done? Are they overwhelmed? Do they got too much on their plate? Do they lack certain skills? Did I assign the wrong person that task? So there's got to be a lot of reflection by the leader of what's going on, the dynamics, and who's volunteering, and all that stuff is important.
Mhm.
And the leader, again, needs to be um, motivating his or her team such that everyone has a reasonable workload, and one that they can succeed at and achieve the goals and expectations that are set.
Yeah.
It doesn't, it sounds easy, but we know it's not. And it's complex, and it's dynamic, and it's ever changing these days. It changes very quickly.
Mhm.
But the leader's got to be mindful of, some people do overdo the people pleasing side of it, and be mindful of that,
Yeah.
and be willing to coach and counsel people as needed.
I think that's a big part of, counseling and coaching the team
Hmm.
to this new model of behavior, this new way of moving forward, the new culture, right?
Mhm.
And helping people buy into why we want to move forward into this energy of not having burnout
Mm.
uh, be a reality. So you've written a lot of books.
Mhm.
Which of these books would you say you would recommend for leaders who are worried about the burnout of their people, maybe specific people pleasers or in general? And tell us about that.
Well, I wrote one book about management or leadership styles, and I boil it down to 3 basic styles: directing, discussing, and delegating. And I think those 3 styles are used all the time by leaders, every day and every meeting and what have you. And I think it's important to, as I said before, the delegating piece. You can over delegate to your star performers. So be mindful of that. Discussion is really important when employees are having challenges and tasks and difficulties. A leader needs to be good at asking the right questions, probing the right issues, and getting the person to, share their views and what's going on in their world, their workload, the challenges they face, et cetera, et cetera. So that's important.
Mhm.
And directing is important because there's times when people have no idea what to do. They're clueless, first time they're doing it, they just don't know, so they want and need direction. They want and need the roadmap, the steps they need to take. So directing them is not a bad thing. There's a time and place for direction. The problem I see is a lot of leaders use the wrong style with the person they're working with. Sometimes, they have a person who's very experienced, they know how to do it, they know what to do, so they should be empowered and just go and get it done. And they're directing them. They're telling them, you got to do this and follow this step and see this person. And they're micromanaging, and that turns off that person, demotivates them, and what have you. So using the appropriate style is really important. So that's one book I wrote. I think that's a good start for any leader, well, really for any parent, teacher, coach, doesn't matter. We all use these styles each and every day. So that's, I think, helpful.
I also appreciate what you just said, and would add on, would you agree that it's not necessarily choosing there's a specific style for a specific person, but recognizing that there's styles for different times as well, right? So uh, I may be uh, very capable and clear on what I need to do in most of the things, but there may be a time when that
Mhm.
directing becomes necessary, even though I'm not a person that needs directing most of the time.
Right. Yeah, I think you got to evaluate the task or the project the person's being assigned in their experience level and what have you. You're right.
Mhm.
Most of us have experience and skills in certain areas, and we know what to do and we can handle it. And my boss used to often just put on a memo or a report or something, just please handle. He wanted me to look into it, figure out what the problem was, take care of it, solve the problem.
Mhm.
Other times, like I say, when I had no idea what to do, first time doing it, brand new, I needed direction. So you're right. Different tasks for each of us requires a different style of managing or leading. Sometimes the discussion style, you want to ask questions of the employee to find out how are they thinking about this task. What's their view? What are they going to do? What's their plan? Do they see any obstacles? So you're kind of assessing how are they seeing it? How are they thinking about it? And are they pretty much on track or
Mhm.
are not? They may
Yeah.
be missing some real key factors that they really need to consider. So there you need to discuss those and, bring those out and clarify or discuss, what would they do in this situation. Um, it's sort of like raising kids, Amy. Early in life, we're directing, right? We tell the child what to do, what not to do, what to
Yeah.
wear, when to eat. As they get older, we discuss, what do you think?
Mhm.
What would you do here? What are your values? And then as they get a little bit older, we delegate. We hope that our 18-year-old son or daughter can make good decisions for themselves. They can set goals and they can plan and they can do all those
Mhm.
things that need to be done. Some parents, are using the wrong style. I heard a parent recently, the child was 28 years old and the parents telling them they need to get a haircut and they need to shine their shoes and they need to do this and that, so
Yeah.
yeah, so use the right style is a challenge for all of us.
And what I really like about what you said, both in the workplace and with parenting, I've got 3 kids, so I totally get it. I as a coach, I tend towards the discuss style the most to then determine which direction
Mhm.
uh, I'm going, in my life
Mm.
or with
Mhm.
clients, right? To
Yep.
see, where are they actually at.
Yep. Yep.
Um, I'm curious, when when you were working in industry, would you do you have an example of a time when you had a people pleaser and saw this creating burnout, and what did you do about it? Do you have that
Mhm.
example?
Yeah, I was in charge of management training. I had, I think, roughly 7 or 8 people reporting to me. And I had one person, yeah, that would volunteer for just about everything. When anyone said they were having trouble or they needed help in a certain area, they would say, I'll help, I'll do it, I'll take it on. So again, early on, I was impressed. This person's a real go-getter. They got unbelievable energy. They're a high achiever, on and on and on. So I kind of let it go, thinking this is a great employee. But as I say, pretty soon I found out they weren't getting their job done. They weren't getting their task done. So I had to talk to them one-on-one and talk about what they were doing and help them or explain to them that it's important that the other employees who are responsible for certain tasks and projects, that they in fact get the work done and meet the deadlines and all that. And that it's more important for this, it was a female, for this individual to understand her core job and make sure that was going to be done perfectly and meet all deadlines and budget restraints and all that. And so we had a discussion, and she understood and began to make some changes. But you're right. People pleasers can get burnt out because they're taking on just way too much, and they want to please everyone. Now, the leader shouldn't be a psychologist necessarily and get into the depths of why they do these things. But the fact is, her behavior was leading her to getting burnt out and overwhelmed. And, she was often in a panic mode after a while,
Mm.
because she had so many commitments she had made. And so, again, coaching them on what they're doing, changes that would be more productive. And I said, for me, a biggie is you can help people with some advice and some points to consider, but don't take on the task yourself.
Mm.
And also, when you're committing to help, understand how much time and effort is this going to take,
Yeah.
because the people pleaser often raises their hand to help, not really fully thinking through, this is going to take 40 hours of my time to
Yeah.
get this done. So
Yeah.
thinking through how much time and effort is this going to take before I commit to it is kind of a good step to slow them down and to be careful where you are committing
Mhm.
your time. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's one example, I guess.
Thank you. Well, as you were sharing that, I was thinking, like, one of the one of the reasons why some people who are people pleasers put their hand up for every single thing is because they want to feel appreciated, they want to feel valued, they want
Yep.
to feel like they are important, right? And
Mhm. Yep.
so, as a leader, I often guide leaders of, it's our opportunity to meet that need and communicate to the individual they are valuable, they
Mhm.
are appreciated, they are these things. They do not need to continue to say yes all the time
Mhm.
in order to fill that, because they already are those things,
Mhm.
and to help them come up with examples that they can pull out of their own head of
Mhm.
times when they were valuable and appreciated,
Mhm.
so they're not seeking that all the time. I
Mm.
also am curious about this idea that if an individual tends towards this style, would you be guiding that leader to encourage their people pleaser to, what you are saying the words, to be a guide more so than the
Mhm.
person doing the tasks?
Mhm.
I would take that a little bit further, perhaps, to say, if we're trying to create a culture here of individuals raising up in their own leadership,
Mhm.
how can you be a leader of this person and guide and mentor using the direct, discuss, delegate framework that you're
Mhm.
talking about, and teaching those people pleasers how to
Mhm.
step into that leadership? What do you think about that?
I think that's a great idea, and I think the people pleaser, if they can coach the person who's asking them for help and guidance, and have a short discussion with them, and maybe coach them on what steps they could take to get it done. I think the idea too that the people pleaser needs to be aware that other people need to be accountable
Mhm.
for them to show what they can do.
Yeah.
If people are always jumping in to help, Jack or Sue or Harry or whoever, then they're not getting the chance to show what they can do and how they can get the task done, and that type of thing. So that's kind of another angle, if you will, of what the people pleaser needs to be thinking about, and
Yeah.
hopefully making some changes.
I appreciate that very much, because that was one of my biggest lessons, that when I said no, I was making space for someone else to rise to that next level. And
Mm,
so there's that shift internally for the people pleaser to make,
mm,
and for the
mhm,
leader to say, okay, good job, you're making that shift so these other people
mhm.
can rise too, right?
Yeah, right, right.
Amazing, amazing. So, you have many articles, as we've already talked about, but you have given me a link to drop into the show notes on recognizing and overcoming the drama triangle. Can you talk a little bit about that so people will go click the link?
Yeah, Stephen Kaufman wrote, or back in 1968, he discussed this idea of the drama triangle. And if you think of a triangle with the three uh, points on it, you got the aggressive person, the victim, and the rescuer. And the dynamics of those three are such that the aggressive person often creates the victim, and the victim is, whining and complaining, and I can't get it done, and I'm overloaded, and what have you. And the rescuer or people pleaser often jumps in to save the day and to help the victim. To understand the drama that gets created by these different roles. Uh, when the aggressive person acts in a very aggressive manner, they create drama because they kind of upset the team, and people get a little bit nervous, and they don't want to deal with this person, because typically they're very in your face, they're very direct, they talk over people, so they're not pleasant to be around, so that creates drama. The victim creates drama because they don't get their work done. They have a lot of excuses, they have a lot of blame, that they point the finger at everyone else but themselves. So them not getting their tasks done creates disharmony in the group, you know? And then the rescuer also can create drama because they're jumping in to help and assist, but as we said, they're not getting their work done. So again, we have a lot of incomplete work, and that creates drama. So you got these three roles that people often play, and we all play them to some extent. I'm talking about the extreme behaviors. For a leader to understand these three roles and kind of have a sense of what's going on in his department, who is acting overly aggressive, who's acting like a victim, who's acting like a rescuer or people pleaser, and understanding the dynamics of those roles can help the leader be more aware of what's going on, and then do the appropriate coaching to help the person be more effective. As I said
Mm,
earlier, I think the role of the leader is always to help people perform at their best. And you're not performing at your best if you're, stuck in one of those roles, and that's your way of behaving. So that's what the article is about. It kind of goes into some of the background and actions you can take when dealing with each of those three different types of people. So,
Amazing. Thank
yeah.
you so much for sharing that. And I will be sure to put that in the show notes, as
Mhm.
well as your social media links, your website. So
Mhm.
individuals who are keen to connect can
Mhm.
follow up with you there.
Great. Appreciate that.
It was such a pleasure chatting with you today. Thank you so much for sharing your incredible wisdom.
Thank you, Amy, for having me on. I enjoyed it. I
Awesome.
hope it was helpful to your audience.
Yes, I'm sure it was. I'm sure it was. And to our amazing listeners, thank you so much for tuning into Power to the People Pleasers. Once again, please stay tuned for the next episode coming soon. Have an awesome day.